Here I am. I'm all ready to rock and roll, and then for some reason my light has gone out. Sorry, everybody. My name is Clay Gordon. Welcome to this episode of The Chocolate Life Live, episode 65. And before I bring on my guest, Denise Speck, what I'd like to do is I'd like to remind everybody, no matter where you might be connecting from today, go to the comments. Let me know where you're connecting from, and I'll get you up and acknowledge you. And also in that same vein, if you have a question for our guest today, please put it in the comments, and we will get it asked and answered. And with those formalities out of the way, I want to introduce Denise Speck to everyone. Hey, Denise, how are you today?
Hi, thank you. I'm very good, Clay.
Good.
How are you?
Are you dialing in from Germany, or are you in Groningen? Are you in the Netherlands at the moment?
I am currently in Trinidad, in Port of Spain, or very nearby Port of Spain.
I am so jealous.
Yes.
I've been to Port of Spain. I'd loved visiting in Trinidad. And the weather at the moment, we have entered, I think, the first stages of winter here in New York City. Lots of leaves are on the ground, and it's cold and wet and windy today. So I'm totally jealous for where you are. But thanks for joining me today, and thanks for reaching out to me on LinkedIn, telling me about this film project you're working on. And before we get to the details of that and letting people see the trailer and letting people know what's going on. So you're originally from Germany, but you're going to school in the Netherlands, right? And you're studying something called a Masters of Sustainable Entrepreneurship. So what is sustainable entrepreneurship, and how did you get to that point in your life?
That is a very good question, and I actually hear this question more often. So I have to say to this that I'm currently not there anymore. So I finished this chapter of my life, which is very nice as well. But I basically did my bachelor's in international business and management studies just because I finished school. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do in my life. And it seemed that international business was just the way to go. It gives you so many opportunities of what you could do with it. So I did my studies in the field, but I quickly found out that it was not really fulfilling me. It was really interesting to know. It was great to get the basics of doing business, but there was a little bit this social aspect missing for me. So I did a little, a little break 1 year. I don't know if you could call it a sabbatical, but I focused on passions. Like
we call them gap years.
A gap year. Thank you so much. Yes, a gap year. So I did a gap year. I focused on my passions, which are yoga and photography. And I returned to Europe with a spark of learning more. And suddenly I realized that there was this program offered by the University of Groningen, Campus Friesland. So that is even a little bit more up north. And it was sustainable entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship was something that I had a background in, but not really so much sustainability. And that just seemed like the perfect program in order to combine these two things that were interesting to me, that I felt like I could do something more about. So what does sustainable entrepreneurship really mean? I mean, entrepreneurship might be clear. It's about how to set up an enterprise, how to guide an enterprise, what are different strategies, how can you generate value. This could be either as a self-employed person or setting up your business, having your podcast or live stream or a little chocolate company, whatever it might be. And the sustainable aspect, which I thought was really great, was incorporating these three pillars. And the three pillars are the environment, or the environmental aspect, the social aspect, and the economic aspect. But important there was that none of these pillars had priority over the other, but in sustainable entrepreneurship, it's about equally incorporating each aspect and generating value for the bigger group around you. So how could you do business while generating value for the community, for the environment, but also have revenue or financial income that actually helps you in order to sustain yourself, because being purely like an NGO can be also quite difficult to do this in the long run, because what are you eventually living off? So I guess this is.
I think it's interesting if I think it's interesting if I can jump in there. If I can jump, just interesting because we talk about, you know, how do we define sustainability, and what I'm interested here is your take. I often talk about a fourth pillar, which I think is equally important, and I think it connects with perhaps your international business and the entrepreneurship aspects. Is that questions about environmental, economic, and I think of the word social, right? Pillars, right? So we have this environmental aspect, which is the farms, for want of a better term. These farmers live in communities, and there needs to be enough money to be able to support the environmental and social. So that's the economic component. All that stuff happens in producing countries like Trinidad, right? These are where these issues are. But what we need also, I think, is sustainable markets, right? So there need to be people in consuming countries, right, who are willing to actually pay what's necessary to fulfill everything that's happening in the producing country. And I mean, this is just sort of a general thing that I've been talking about for some time. I'm interested in how that resonates with the way you think of the universe. I mean, you're coming at this just starting out in your career, just, you know, from this place of enthusiasm. I'm this grizzled old gray hair, right, who's been doing this for a while. And so I'm sort of interested in how that resonates with you.
I totally agree to what you're saying, because entrepreneurship is not only about the producer trying to implement as many sustainable strategies as possible, but it's about the whole. So the consumer has as much saying in it, because as long as a consumer supports something that is unsustainable, there won't be a change to it. And I guess I'm very fortunate, especially through my studies and the community, like in Groningen, the place where I studied, there's a lot of young people, and you can really feel the spirit, because it's a lot of young, educated people that are open for change and that are open for ethical consumption. So even though that we as students might not have so much money, there is a change in mindset happening to rather appreciate something that might cost a little bit more, but you have the good conscience that it has been produced under responsible no, I'm missing the word.
Well,
condition.
you know, listen, English is your second or third, or who knows how many, you know, down the generations of language. So I understand. I stumble over my choice of words all the time. But what I want to do is connect that last statement, right? So you're in the Netherlands, which is the largest cocoa processing country in the world, right? But you're in this, you've got an international business undergraduate degree. You're in this sustainable entrepreneurship program at the graduate level. Why cocoa? Or was it part of the curriculum, and there was something going on and you got connected to cocoa? Just cocoa is in the air in the Netherlands. What sparked the connection to cocoa?
You know, that is actually a very, very good question. I've always been very interested in producing countries in the situations that are happening there. And my passion was always coffee, the slow coffee movement, so to say. I'm a really big coffee geek, and I appreciate great coffees that are produced under fair conditions. So with that in mind, I always thought about how wonderful it would be to pursue a career in the coffee field. And as I was writing my master thesis, which was I didn't share this before. I did my master thesis in digital storytelling to empower disadvantaged communities. So this also ties in now with this film project. So as I was conducting my master thesis, I was a little bit distracted, and I scrolled through my LinkedIn, and suddenly I saw a webinar happening about sustainability in the cocoa and chocolate market. So in my mind, I made these connections, and I was like, oh, that's so interesting. I never thought about cocoa, or as I called it before, cacao, but after now, while in Trinidad, I learned to say cocoa. I never made this connection between cocoa or cacao and coffee, but actually it's quite similar crops. They are both produced in the same geographical region. Farmers oftentimes, they they're under the same circumstances. So I was quite interested checking into this webinar and just learning what is happening there when it comes to sustainability. And being part of it, it was really a good experience. And there was one company introducing themselves. I think you might have also already come across the name. It's Uber Green Organics.
I know the founders of the company. Yes.
Yes, a cocoa trading company. Mm-hmm. And they were presenting themselves, and they said that they were organic cocoa bean traders from Trinidad and Tobago. So I read it and I was like, Trinidad and Tobago, how exotic. It's like, it's a place I never really thought of. And I love traveling, but it seemed so far-fetched. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's so interesting. So I looked up the company on LinkedIn and I wrote one of the founders a little message, who I am, what I'm doing, what my research is about, and that I would really love to practice my research in a more practical field instead of just working somewhere in an office and never really experiencing what it means to be on the grounds, like where cocoa is grown. Mm-hmm. They really liked my idea and supported me in the process of coming to Trinidad. So this all happened. Tell me if you have a question in between, because I feel like
I will. When I want to interrupt the flow of the narrative, I will certainly do that.
Okay.
Believe me, I have been accused of many things in my life, but being shy is not one of them. So yeah.
Okay, great.
Right. So I just want to say you anticipated one of the questions, which is, okay, how we got to cacao, number one, or cocoa, and then how we got to Trinidad. So you answered that as well. And what I would like to do very, very quickly is just acknowledge that we do have a visitor who's thrown their name into the comments. Mark and Yuri are listening from Denver, Colorado this morning. Blue Spruce Chocolates. Thanks, Mark and Yuri, for letting us know you're here. And everybody who might be watching this, if you got a question for Denise, please put it into the comments and we'll get it asked and answered. So all I can say is, you're in Trinidad at the moment. If you get a chance to talk with either Tobias or Renee, please say hello. So
I'll do so.
I actually would have been in conversation with them over the last couple of years. There was a program for marketing Trinitario Cocoa. Somehow it went back to the funding organization needed to re-examine something. I don't know if they've reopened that project or not. But anyway, so we've gone from the Netherlands to cacao to Trinidad. And so the next question is, okay, now it makes sense if your studies at the university in Groningen are in digital storytelling, then making a film seems to be a fairly straightforward leap.
Yeah, seems perfect.
Mm-hmm. But you decided to make an analog film. So with everything that you're doing, you decided to say, we want to go old school, at least originate in the film medium. So you shot it on 16 millimeter, right? Which is an interesting choice in and of itself. But I'm sort of curious. So was this a creative decision that your filmmaker and co-director, your cinematographer, director of photography, co-director, Oliver, was this a decision that he made, or was this something that you put together yourself?
I would say it was certainly his suggestion to do so, because in itself, I'm not too informed when it comes to the whole making process. I really like photography. I have this entrepreneurial background. And coming here to Trinidad, I spent a lot of time with the farming communities in doing a storytelling project, which was more focused on interviews and photographs. Mm-hmm. And of course, I learned a lot during that time. And I have to say that I am a passionate photographer when it comes to analog photographs. So it's something that I love. I love the feel that you have, the unexpectancy of it, and also to really shoot consciously an object and not really knowing how it turns out. You're with the object and you think about it instead of just click, 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 what you sometimes do with digital ones.
Well, I don't know if you know this about me, but my university degree is in fine arts photography. Yeah. And I got my degree before digital photography was a thing. right? So I totally get it. I think that one of the lost arts
Yeah.
when people are photographing things digitally is calming down and going, I only have 36 options on this particular roll of film that I'm using, and I only have one kind of film, right? And it's going to take me hours or days or weeks before I actually understand what it is that I photographed. And if I've got a black and white film, that's one set of choices. If I have a color
Yeah.
film, it's a completely different set of choices. And so there's a huge amount of editing that happens before you even pick up the camera and point it at a
Yeah.
particular thing, and then decide that you're going to actually press the shutter. I think one of the real interesting skills that we've lost in this digital age, and it's something that I think that many younger people never even know about or think about consciously, is just the notion of, oh, is this photograph worth keeping? I'm going to delete it. Right.
Yes.
Right. So I'm intrigued by your love, right, at coming into it, and digital has been around for the entirety of your existence, right? Digital imaging,
Exactly. Yes.
going into analog and old school. So the fact that you had a love for film origination in stills, you think that made you more open to Oliver's suggestion that 16 millimeter is the right way to do this?
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
So I didn't really know what 16 millimeter was to that point in time, I have to admit. But when Oliver suggested that it was great to shoot this film analog, I was absolutely enthusiastic about it. And I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, shooting such a short film or documentary in analog also entails a lot of risks, I have to say. So it doesn't come without any potential challenges, but what is life without any challenges, right?
A lot less fun.
A lot less fun, because
Okay.
already
Right.
developing it is.
Okay, so what I want to do, I want to jump in and get a couple of questions. So
Okay.
Mark, who's watching this from Blue Spruce Chocolates, has asked a question. We've answered one of the questions. So, right, he's gone to the GoFundMe page. Yay, we'll get to that, everybody, if you haven't been there yet. So why 16 millimeter? All right, so we've talked about that just a little bit. And 16 is a really, really interesting format, because if you're a 35 millimeter photographer, at least you're at a 3:2 aspect ratio. So you're a little bit widescreen. I mean, 16 millimeter is going back, and you're at 4:3, right? And if we're used to television these days, it's 16:9, which has a very, very different sensibility to it. I mean, you've got this. Not only do you have something, your originating film, which is really, really hard to duplicate if you try to, color grade it in post and make it look like film after the fact, right? You're shooting on film. There's this sense that we get, which is really, really hard to fake. But you've got this, very different, much narrower, right, view on the world. And we might get to some of the creative decisions in filmmaking. It's difficult, if you're going to do a lockdown shot, to do this beautiful panorama vista, right, if you're, only, this wide as opposed to this wide. But he says, how was the experience of dragging 16 millimeter equipment around the country? I don't know that there's actually any original first growth jungle anymore on the island of Trinidad. And then he asked the questions about distribution channels, and let's let the distribution channel question go towards the end. But what was it like? I mean, you could have shot this film with an iPhone, right?
Yes.
Which is a very different rig, but you've got a 16 millimeter. And when we go to the GoFundMe page, if I go look at it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share that screen for the moment. And, there's the crew. There you are. And there's an
Yes.
old style, 16 millimeter film camera over the shoulder. I mean, that's
Exactly.
and it's not on a Steadicam rig either, right? So, I mean, what was it? I mean, this is your first experience shooting a film, and you're doing it old school, and
Yeah, so
you've never
cool.
been to film school. What was it like?
Well, Oliver did the filming. I was like the directing one next to it, and I sometimes had a little 8mm one to take some behind the scenes shots.
Cool.
But the camera was heavy. It was really heavy, and it was just sometimes, I don't know, I felt so much seeing Oliver juggling this huge heavy camera the whole day on his shoulders, and just feeling at some points really exhausted, but he kept on going, and it was just beautiful and inspiring to see. But just in general, dragging this whole equipment around was quite challenging, because one has to imagine these cocoa estates, they're not always perfectly steep, especially for the ones of you who might be aware. We went to Brazo Seco, to one of our protagonists, and Brazo Seco is the hilly area of Trinidad, and his estate is really on a hill, and there's also quite some rain, so it was slippery, and we had to go down the whole estate to a little river. And it was just so challenging having the heavy camera. You shouldn't fall. You have to take care with every step that you're taking, and all the boxes with different lenses and different.
Yeah, I mean, you need a Sherpa, right, just for the extra gear. Now, I mean, you show a 4-person crew. Was there another person in the crew? Was it just the 4 of you?
It was, at this point in time, it was just the 4 of us. And then later on, there was also a music composer coming to it. So, but really in the field was the 4 of us.
Yeah. I can imagine. I mean, just from my own experience, I worked for the first high definition television production company in North America. And so I remember the first time we ever stuck an HD camera on a Steadicam. And it was a full-size Steadicam. It was a huge rig. And once, about the same time, we were shooting on the Hudson River, right, in a canoe with the world's only compact, HD video recorder, right, and camera for it. And so the notion of, like, you have to be really careful. I mean, for us, it was capsizing the canoe in the Hudson River. For you, it was like you're at the top of this hill and you need to make sure you don't end up at the bottom of this hill, right, with all your gear all over the place. I completely get it. No,
but you know what excuse me.
No. But what did you learn, I think, is the question.
What I quickly wanted to add on what I think was also particularly challenging with the format was that you have to imagine that we had these big Kodak film rolls that we put into I don't know, is it called a cassette?
Well, yeah, you have to have a dark bag. So everything needs to be, you take the old film out and the new film in. So it's its whole routine all by itself. Yeah.
And that was so challenging. Sometimes in the middle of the bush, you don't have like a proper area that you can actually put things down. And Dylan, our camera assistant, did really a great job in handling this under every circumstance and making sure that there is no light entering, and whether you have to imagine there's humidity and everything in these areas. So it was really an experience, but we loved it.
I have had similar kinds of challenges in terms of production experiences. And I think that one of the reasons why you do this as a career, I mean, if, Oliver, he's committed to the 16mm camera, right, as a format. So, he realizes, what it is that he's done by committing himself and, what it is that he's up for. And it's not just carrying it around, but it's all this other stuff that's associated with it. And the cassette may be good for 8 to 10 minutes of shooting or something like that. I mean,
I think it was around 40.
Oh, 40. Wow. So, okay. So
it was a big one.
Big magazines. All right. So at least you're not changing them all the time. So no, absolutely. Interesting. And then, you're doing what I think is called what we would call second system audio. I mean, there is no audio recorder in the film camera, right? So you've got somebody on the side who's got not only a recorder in his pouch. I mean, this is, we're sitting there looking at this is Jelanie here. Correct.
Jelanie at the right.
Jelanie. So can I make this a little bigger? Yeah. So there's Jelanie. Whoops. Let's scroll. So there's Jelanie, and he's got a digital audio recorder sitting in his pack. You see him wearing the headphones. What we don't see is the microphone on the boom, right? There's going to be a microphone there somewhere.
What do you mean by the boom?
So a microphone on a stick.
Okay. Yeah, we did have that at times. So Jelanie was basically always recording the ambient sounds, but where also most of our sound derived from was that we did interviews with the 4 protagonists that are part of the film. So we basically have them telling the story, which will then later be in the background of the analog shots that are basically the visuals of the film. So at this point in time, we took a little break, so the microphone was not around.
Well, I understand you're having a photograph taken, and and all that kind of stuff. I understand it completely, but yeah, I'm just thinking that we've been talking about Oliver and the film camera that he's carrying around,
Yes.
but and maybe so Dylan, who's the camera assistant, he's got the bag which has got all the film cassettes and lenses and all that other stuff that's going on, right?
He was a powerhouse,
right?
Carrying so much equipment through the jungle. It was impressive.
Yeah, but Jelanie is there, and the digital audio recorder is its own infrastructure of its own, and batteries. Right, and all that other kind of stuff that needs to get into microphones and all this other kind of stuff. It's actually quite a production. What I want to do is I want to jump in really quickly, get a question from Teresa. Teresa's a regular listener here to the live streams, and she's in Georgia. And she asked the question. She makes the comment: I think the feeling and the nuance of light can't just be captured by digital in the same way. So
totally agreed.
So here's an interesting question, if I can.
Yes.
I mean, I know that one of the things, as a still photographer, we know the difference between Kodacolor and other Fujicolor and Agfacolor and other kinds of colors, and each one of these companies make different film stocks that provide different color renditions. Did you guys have this discussion specifically about, okay, we want a particular look to the film, and therefore we're going to shoot it on this particular film stock in order to get that look? Because that would be a fairly common discussion.
We indeed did have this discussion, but it was basically Oliver's playground to share his experience with different films that he already used and that he thinks would be most appropriate for the context. So we had 2 different ones, and I wish that I could tell the names now, but I kind of forgot. One of them was really good for brighter light situations, and we just used it basically throughout the day when we followed the protagonist through their daily routines. And then one was a little bit colder and a little bit more mellow. I think it's called Kodak Ektachrome. And used for more rainy, moody atmospheres.
Right. Yeah. So it would make sense to me to have 1 or 2 film stocks which are used for the exterior, right? Depending upon whether you're working in bright sun or whether you're working in overcast or rainy conditions, and then maybe a 3rd film stock where if you're doing interior interviews, so you can have a controlled audio environment, it would make sense. But yeah, no, I totally get the idea of of selecting a particular film stock to invoke a particular mood that you want to get in a particular way. And I want to let you know that I'm really enjoying this part of the conversation. I did not know that this was where it would go. I am always really excited and fascinated when there's this topic that we bring up and I can connect it back, to something. Listen, I was planning to be a professional photographer when I was 21, and I wanted to be a professional fine arts photographer as well. And so, these are discussions, or discussions I was having with my professors and explorations that I was doing on my own, when I was at school doing this. I didn't study film, but the same issues are ones that often get raised when we're looking at still photography. So this is really fabulous. So this is great for me. So had you done any film origination in your digital storytelling? So how was it different from originating movies in the digital format and then working with film? I'm just really curious from your perspective.
I don't really have experience in digital filmmaking either. So what usually I'm doing stills. I really like photography, but not too much the filming aspect, or the motion photo aspect, because I don't really have so much experience in it. So that is why Oliver's expertise got very handy.
No, I'm sure. I mean, as a director, it is really important to rely on your DP, right?
Yep.
So he's saying, okay, maybe we need to use this lens, right? So you might use a wide angle so you can get in and compress the way space looks for a particular shot, as opposed to using a telephoto lens if you want to get a different compression of space and a feeling for what it is that goes on. So,
Yeah.
the DP is, and, um, yeah, I mean, yeah, no, again, it's exciting for me to have these discussions. And what Mark at Blue Spruce says is that they're hoping you share more stills of your process. I mean,
Yeah.
do you have more? Production
Yes,
stills?
we do. And Mark, I invite you to check out our Instagram page, Trinitario Cocoa Film, because there we've also been busy to already share some of the behind the scenes shots that are the stills of.
Right. So having said that, great. Thank you very much. Good segue. For people who are regulars here, I produce a page on the Chocolate Life for every single one of the live streams. Here's the page for today's live stream. And you can go down and there is a link to the Trinitario Cocoa Film Instagram feed. You just go click, boom, over there, and you can go and see all of the behind the scenes and other production stills. So thanks for bringing that up, and I'm glad that I embedded this into the page so we could discuss it. So we have a new visitor, Chocolate Treat. Not sure where you're coming from. Blowing chocolate kisses and hugs, and
Thank you.
then so thank you very, very much for the support. And Teresa, I'm glad. You're a photographer as well, so I'm glad you're enjoying that discussion. So as long as we have this page going. And before we get into more of the details, because I'm really interested in what you can share that's not a spoiler, right, for Trinitario Cocoa, right,
Mm-hmm.
and what that means to you, and other things. But what I wanted to do is jump really, really quickly over to the GoFundMe page, because you reached out to me on LinkedIn and you wanted somehow for support for the GoFundMe. I mentioned that I probably get one a week opportunity for people to say, hey, can you support what it is that I'm doing? And I try to do it through publicity and PR and outreach and things like that. So because it would bankrupt me if I supported everybody who approached me to do these things. But so for everybody, there is a GoFundMe page. There is a link to the GoFundMe page here on the Chocolate Life. So you don't need to write it down. You don't need to worry about looking very closely at what the URL of the page is. You can click here. And here is the GoFundMe page. It gives the current status of the fundraising campaign, as well as a little bit of background information on what the project is about. So Denise, since you put together this page,
Yes.
what else would you like to tell people about the project that you didn't anticipate that hasn't made it up to the GoFundMe page?
Oh, that's a very good question now. I think what I would like to share is that, and I don't even know if I wrote it now in the GoFundMe page or not, but Trinitario Cocoa is a beautiful story of 4 different protagonists. And we follow them, and it's farmers that I have gotten to know throughout the process of my time here in Trinidad and that I have deeply connected with. So I really got to learn their stories and their challenges in the space, as well as the opportunities that they seek in order to revive this industry. Because that is ultimately what the short film is about. It's about how can we revive something that might be in danger to potentially go extinct.
Mm-hmm.
So we follow these 4 protagonists and we show their farming in different stages, but always with a solution focus in order to really inspire people on understanding the beauty and magic behind farming and appreciating Trinitario cocoa, appreciating a fine flavor cocoa, and maybe also getting back to this topic that we had before, that it's not only from the producer side, but also from the consumer. So we need consumers that appreciate the story behind the product and that are maybe also open to contribute a little bit more money because it's worth it, because it has been handmade by a beautiful family and it's their whole life, and it's not just from any other huge chocolate factory.
I want to let you know that I am listening and paying attention, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to head over to the Instagram page and
Yes,
find at least one image, right, of someone who is in the film, and
yes.
let me find out. Tell us if you can a little bit more, or if you will. I'm sure you can, but tell us if you will a little bit more about Daniel.
Oh, this is really interesting. This is Daniel, and he's a varao from, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, and I don't know if I can explain it properly, but this is from a farm in southern Trinidad in Moruga, and there's a lot of Venezuelans and also Venezuelans. Is it called Venezuelans or Venezuelans?
No, Venezuelans. And for people who are not familiar with the geography of the region, I mean, Trinidad is just off the coast of Venezuela.
Exactly.
So, right.
So due to the current economic situation there, there's a lot of refugees coming over to Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel is one of them. He is here in Trinidad together with his family. And he's from the Varao community, which is it's not an ancient, but it's an indigenous community in Venezuela. And what he basically does in order to afford his life and also the life of his family, he helps on farms and works there. So he was also there on the day that we were shooting, and he has been helping to clean the land and to harvest some figs, as they call it, bananas for us, because the crew was hungry.
Right. So as hired labor, so he's getting paid for what it is that he's doing.
Exactly. Yes, right. Absolutely. That is one of the focus of all the protagonists that we have been involved, that they're very conscious people that are very concerned about generating equal value for everyone.
So here's another one.
Yes, a ghosting photo.
Martin ghosting the scene. Okay, he doesn't want to be on camera.
Well, he did. I think it was more a little bit like an analog, because all these shots are also analog, so it was a little bit the lighting process and the shutter speed that it happened to be ghosting. But I really enjoyed the photographs, so I nonetheless decided that it should be something that should be publicated. But Herman actually, or Martin, if you quickly want to go back, he's one of the protagonists of our film, and their story is very, very beautiful, because it's a family business that is located in central Trinidad, and what they do is just so beautiful. They really focus on integrating the younger generation into their business and focusing on these value-added aspect, which means that they process all the beans. They harvest the beans, they process them at their facility, and then they also create chocolates out of it and other products such as cocoa butter or cocoa wine. I don't know if ever any one of you tasted it. I did. It's really nice.
Hold on a second. Continue the conversation. I'll be back.
Oh, continue the conversation. Sorry, I didn't understand properly. So yes, he focuses as well on value-added products such as cocoa wine or the whole family. And it's just really beautiful to witness how the family business is thriving.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to go get a prop because I was in
Cocoa
Ecuador recently.
Nice.
And so here is a bottle of locally produced. So we're Puerto Quito in Pichincha province. This is a bit of locally produced cacao wine. So
Fantastic.
So there are people who are, trying to do a lot of things with cocoa derivatives these days. And I worked on a project to create a distilled spirit from cacao juice. And so I am really, really fascinated by people using fermentation, not just for the beans themselves, but fermentation in the juice and pulp afterwards, and what can be done with that. So I'm excited about people who are making cacao wine and cacao beer and lots of other things like that. So I just wanted to jump up and get a prop and share with you that every time I visit a producing country, if somebody is doing something unusual with the juice or the pulp, I am all down for trying it, especially when it's fermented.
Yes, I can imagine. It's so interesting.
It is. And when you were on the island, and you're still there, you're there. I mean, one of the things that, so I was there in September of 2019 for World Cocoa Day,
Very
which was
nice.
organized in part by the Trinidad Cocoa Promotion Group, whose name escapes me at the moment, but also with the Cocoa Research Center, which is
Mhm.
located outside Port of Spain directly. And so I had an opportunity to meet dozens, not only of cocoa producing families, but also companies that are taking this cocoa and doing lots of really interesting things with it. So, did you know much about Trinidadian chocolate before you went there? Right. And, what are your thoughts about, Trinidadian chocolate today? No, made on the island. Right.
That's such a good question because I didn't have any clue about Trinitario Cocoa before I got to Trinidad. I heard it, of course, because of the preparations and the proposal writing for the project, but I never heard of it before. So then I came to Trinidad and I visited these different farming communities, and they let me try or taste their tree to bar chocolate products. And I just loved it so much. It was something so special for me because the chocolate is so fruity and so floral in a way, and suddenly had notes that I before not really could appreciate in chocolate because it wasn't there. So this summer I went home to Germany for a couple of weeks, and of course sometimes I also was in a mood to eat a bit of chocolate, but every time it was such a disappointment because I guess I'm a bit spoiled now, and I just really like dark Trinitario chocolate around 70% is really nice. I wonder how your experience was with that, or in how far you as an expert appreciate Trinitario cocoa flavors.
Well, first of all, there's this interesting history to the word Trinitario, right? What it means is Trinidad, and it is as a result. Trinitarios are a result of a blight that hit the island in the 1700s. It looks like the first varieties that went to the island were more delicate, what we would now call Criollo varieties. These Criollo and Forastero words are residuals of Spanish conquest of the region. Criollo just means from here, native, right?
Mm,
And Forastero means from there or far away or foreign. And so
makes
what grew
sense.
in what is now Mexico was considered to be Criollo, and what was grown in South America, what we now call South America, was foreign or far away. And so Trinitario is, this linguistic construction that said it came from the island of Trinidad. And so it is likely that Criollo varieties from what is now, Mayan Mesoamerica made their way to Trinidad. And that after the blight, they would have brought in varieties which were more resistant to disease. So these would have been Forastero type varieties, and the two would have been deliberately hybridized.
Yes,
So bred to create varieties which combined the flavor qualities that were there in Criollos, but had some of the disease resistance of the hardier Forasteros. And now we have this thing which we call Trinitarios, but there are lots of hybrids of Criollos and Forasteros which actually weren't developed on the island of Trinidad. There are lots of hybrids all over the place that we call Trinitarios because of their genetics, right? Weren't actually created on the island of Trinidad. And I think, I don't know if you ran across this, but there is a marketing campaign, and this may be something that either Tobias or Renee spoke with you about, around the notion of something called true Trinitarios.
yeah,
There's this idea to sort of grab back the identity of Trinitario and say, well,
exactly.
these are the true Trinitario varieties which originated
Or
on
the
the island.
original.
Right. So is this a part of, is that sort of, is that a part of what it is that you talk about here? Right.
In the short
This
film,
idea to reconnect with the original identity of Trinitario cacao.
I would definitely say it is, but less in this very broad historical context, but more in the context that some of you may know that there has been a lot of cocoa production in Trinidad and Tobago, but in the past, suddenly there was, how should I say, there was suddenly the existence of oil and gas, and the industry focused on the exploitation of it. So much of the focus went really on the oil and gas industry, and there has been so many estates that were abandoned because, of course, the fast money was in oil and gas. So I guess in our short film, we more want to place focus on this aspect, but not so much the aspect of criollo and forastero and this natural hybrid. So I think we keep it a little bit more general.
I mean, one of the things about this audience is I know that, that many of them are going to be more technical and want to know this kind of stuff. But I think we come to a really good spot to actually play the GoFundMe trailer. So you ready for that?
I quickly want to say one thing. You asked me about if I knew about Trinitario Cocoa before. And I guess that was also one big motivation for this film, just to raise global awareness of that there is something like Trinitario Cocoa, because so many in Europe, or I guess also in North America, they don't know about it.
Right. Or if they know the word Trinitario, they know the words Criollo, Forastero, and Trinitario, right?
Yes.
And they associate them just sort of generically with, this is good and this is bad, right? But understanding what that means.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that the thing which is important here, and I'm getting from looking at the photographs that you're doing, is that there's a tendency to talk about this sort of an abstract level. Sustainability is all about this. But in the end, we're getting down to farmers. We're getting down to people, the farmers and their families. And so bringing it down, telling the story from that perspective, right? What it means to these people, I think is a great perspective from which to pursue the topic.
Yes.
Right? Rather than something more straight. So thank you for that. Let's go play the trailer. Okay. And I'm not sure if our microphones will be muted. So if there's something you'd like to say over the top of this, right, I will open up your mic and you can talk over the top of it. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I spent the past months in Trinidad and Tobago to explore the story behind.
Let's start from the beginning.
Hey, nice to have you here. I'm Denise, and I spent the past months in Trinidad and Tobago to explore the story behind a very special crop, Trinitario Cocoa. A cacao that was born in Trinidad and Tobago and is characterized by very special flavor notes and qualities. I discovered so much beauty and magic, but also that the future of Trinitario Cocoa may be endangered. The short film Trinitario aims to raise awareness about this precious variety, educate about its challenges and opportunities, and most importantly, acknowledge the wonderful farmers behind the process, inspiring people that live for the love and passion of cocoa and regenerative agriculture. I direct this film together with Oliver and a wonderful local film crew. We toured together across the island for a week, through sunshine and tropical rainstorms, climbed up and down the hill through lush rainforest with an immense amount of gear, all to shoot this film with a 60mm analog camera, something that we believe gives the film a very special feel. It's been a magnificent journey, and we got lots of wonderful materials. But now we're asking for your support, because it really takes a village to raise a short film, and we consider you our village. Your support helps us to complete this film in the quality that Trinitario Cocoa and its farmers deserve it. We want to hire a talented local musician who composes magical music, a sound mixer who creates harmony for the senses, do marketing campaigns, and register at a number of film festivals, so the message reaches as many people as possible. And of course, ensure that our crew receives a fair share for their efforts too. So be part of our village and support this incredibly fulfilling journey. We really believe in the storyline of Trinitario and know how important its message is to foster the change we need to see, to create awareness and to stimulate a movement that inspires farmers, young and old, locally and globally, to change to more sustainable farming methods. Your support will help us to complete the film. Thank you so much. Stick around and see a little teaser of the film.
Is that Solman's music in the background?
Yeah.
That was wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing that. I mean, I'm going to go full geek again on like film stuff, but in some of the segments that you chose, there it's framed, so we're actually seeing a little bit of the frame above and a little bit of frame below, and there's dirt and things from the film gate which project, which end up in the frame, and I'm going, oh man, that adds such a wonderful sort of handmade feel to it, which is often or nearly always missing from anything which was done digitally. I love the evocative feel that the film brings, and the guitar and the humming vocals that Solman is doing. I think that's what it is, right?
Yes.
Right. Just really, really do evoke a mood, and it makes me want to leave immediately, get on a plane, go to JFK, which is only about 20 minutes from where I'm sitting, and head someplace warm where there's a cocoa farm, so I can go back and
What are you waiting for?
well, unfortunately, I have business that I need to take care of tomorrow that doesn't allow me to leave. But it just, and maybe I think that's one of the things that will come about from this is it will actually motivate people to get out of their chairs, right, and go to places and experience some of this stuff firsthand. Because I think that one of the challenges we face, I'm going to jump really quickly. One of the challenges that we face is that very few people know anything about how cocoa is produced, let alone how chocolate is made.
Exactly.
I know that there's a Ritter store somewhere in Germany where you can walk in and they'll make a chocolate bar for you, and that doesn't tell you anything about how the chocolate is made or where the cocoa was grown that was used to make that chocolate. So there is this disconnect because it all happens so far away.
Exactly.
Is that one of your goals? Do you hope that you will motivate people to get off their butts and travel and see this stuff for a person and get a fuller firsthand experience for what's going on?
Absolutely, it would be wonderful if the film reached it, and it's really nice to hear that it evoked such a feeling in you. But actually, one big mission of the film is not only to do this with people from abroad, but also to do this with locals, because there's also so many locals here in Trinidad and Tobago that have never tried Trinitario Cocoa, or that usually have preferred going to the big supermarkets and just buying any commercially produced chocolate. That people that don't know how to process chocolate or how a cocoa pot looks like. So there's so much knowledge that is or that can even be shared here in the context. And through Trinitario, we really want to inspire young people to connect more to nature, to learn about what their country is offering, and even consider or even feel inspired to get back to regenerative farming and maybe see if that is something that would fulfill them, because obviously that is also one big challenge in the space, that there's a lot of older heads on farms and they slowly pass away, but there's no young generations that are interested in farming. So we really want to bring this closer to younger generation on how beautiful and fulfilling it can be.
Great. So I want to jump in here because we have two comments that I want to
Yes,
make sure we get to before the
yes.
hour is over. The first one is from Chocolate Treat, and I don't know where Chocolate Treat is connecting from, but thank you for this. I know that they're connecting on YouTube, but I don't know where in the world YouTube is. And they're saying, consider contacting the Directors Guild of America. I believe they're talking about the Los Angeles chapter. There is a women's steering committee, right? And so there may be something there that can help you. And then also Mark
Thank
at
you.
Blue Spruce in Denver says that they have shared the trailer and done the part on their GoFundMe. Yay, Mark! Thank you very, very much for that. Supporting the efforts to bring awareness. Good for Chocolate Treat for IDing the LA Directors Guild. So yay! Thank everybody for those
Thank you
comments
so much.
and for those support. So absolutely. So it's really early, but you talked about registering this for film festivals.
Mhm.
But somebody was asking about distribution. It's probably way too early to be thinking about, way too early to be wondering about what the distribution possibilities. But what's your ideal? I mean, what would be, you're looking at best case possibility. What do you see, with this film?
We really want to register it to a number of film festivals, international as well as local, just to kind of
Mhm.
spread the message to as many people as possible. That
Mhm.
would be really wonderful. And we would also love to create some exhibitions. One of them is already planned in a Berlin context, where we could show the film and invite people to also have the full experience, to taste the chocolates, or maybe even some ice cream of Trinitario Cocoa, to really make this experimental.
I think that's a great idea. Just from my
Yes.
perspective, from a marketing perspective. So I have been involved a little bit with the promotion of a film called The Chocolate War. So it
Hmm.
was a documentary which was produced out of Copenhagen with a documentary filmmaker by the name of Mickey Mastrati, who was involved in something called The Dark Side of Chocolate. And I was at an
Yes.
event here in New York City on Tuesday, organized by the Museum of Food and Drink, where one of the things we did is we shared a short excerpt from the film. But I know
Yes.
that Terry Collingsworth, who is featured in the film, has gone to chocolate festivals here in the United States and has arranged for screenings, right? So as a part of your entry into the film festival,
Mm-hmm.
there is a screening of the film. And they might do it through something like Vimeo Pro or some
Mm-hmm.
other mechanism to distribute it, without distributing it, right? And
Yes.
I think that going to, for example, the Northwest Chocolate Festival here in Seattle, which was just done, or the Dallas Chocolate Festival, which will be next September, or there's a chocolate festival in Oregon. There's not one here in New York City anymore, unfortunately. But I think that there's really opportunity through the chocolate festival circuit to sort of
Exactly.
pioneer a chocolate film festival circuit, right?
That
And
would
the
be
idea of
absolutely wonderful.
engaging the chocolate makers, right, to provide chocolate
Yeah.
is just a really, really fabulous idea. And I think I speak for people who are in the room now that this is something that, they would definitely, if it came anywhere near them, that this is something that they would do. And I think it would touch, the hearts and minds as well as the taste buds
Yeah.
of the people who were there, and engage them in a way that is very visceral, and speaks to the message, what I think is the message that you're trying to get across, rather
Yeah.
than some abstract kind of way.
Exactly. That's a
Yeah.
really, really nice suggestion of you.
Yeah.
And just recently, we've also been getting the input, which I think is a very great idea, is to potentially distribute it to different educational facilities here in Trinidad, that it would really be shown in schools and reach young people like that.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, educational film distribution is an entirely different part of the world, but
Yeah,
you do have, for example, the equivalent of the Cocoa Research Center in many other
exactly.
countries. And then you have national cacao federations in many other countries. And I don't know if this is part of your plans, but to do a closed captioning in Spanish,
That might be nice.
right? So that people could listen to it, but have closed captioning in Spanish. and that is actually going, would be another fundraising goal, right? To say we want to do a closed caption version after we've done the film to digital transfer, right?
Yes.
We can do those closed captions, would make it available to a lot more people, because I think that, there would be a lot of interest among the NGOs I know of that are working in places like Ecuador and Peru, and Colombia as well, and other parts of the world near to where you are, even other islands in the Caribbean. Although there aren't a whole lot of native Spanish-speaking islands in the Caribbean. They're
Not that I can think of, actually.
Mostly English, but you get the idea. You get the idea.
It's a fantastic idea.
And actually, I mean, this might be something just to know, is that because you went to school at the Rijksuniversity in Groningen, there is a lot of resources in the Netherlands, right, which are aimed at cocoa, right, and awareness. And so it might make sense to reach out to the organizers of the Chocoa conference, because they're very well connected with funding organizations in the Netherlands, who could provide resources to get this done. Some of which are the Royal Tropical Institute, but you have organizations like IDH, which is a big sustainable development organization, and other funding organizations. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go share my screen really, really quickly and say to everybody, there's a post about this live stream on The Chocolate Life right now. If you are a member of The Chocolate Life and there is a free level of membership, you can put comments onto this page. Now, you can also put comment on the GoFundMe page, right? Words of support, and you can do it there. But I think that words of support on the GoFundMe page don't necessarily talk about, how might we help you get more money or distribution or other kinds of things. So I invite everybody to, if you're not already a member of The Chocolate Life, click on the join button. There's always a free button, right? But like the GoFundMe page, if you have the resources and you can send a little money my way, I'm sorry, I'm looking around. I have to look around this bottle of cacao wine in order to figure out where the navigation is on my second screen. To go join The Chocolate Life, become a member, put some comments on the screen. And what I will do for you, Denise, I will set you up in a free membership, so that you will be able to comment back, right, to anybody who does respond to this. And I will do that after this.
Fantastic.
So just, let's continue the conversation. I'm going to try to continue the conversation here on The Chocolate Life rather than to continue the conversation on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, although I will be monitoring those as well. And Denise, you're on LinkedIn. If you connect on The Chocolate Life and also subscribe to the YouTube channel where this will be posted, you'll get an opportunity. Everybody, there is an Instagram channel. I had to open it up in a different browser. There's an Instagram channel, and you can go follow if you're interested in supporting it in that particular way as well. And then, if you have the resources and you'd like to directly contribute to the film, you can do it here on the GoFundMe page. And with that, any closing words from you, Denise, about what went on today?
I thank you so much for the possibility of being here and sharing about Trinitario on the Edge. It really meant a lot, and it would be really wonderful to receive support of your followers as well. And I would love to hear about other funding opportunities or whatever it may be. I think together we can rock this. So thank you so much.
Okay, so there's one question from a comment. So
yes.
Teresa says, inspiring and beautiful in Denver. I agree. And I want to thank you, Denise, for reaching out to me and agreeing to participate today. But she says, in her experience, GoFundMe campaigns have a deadline, right? Is there a deadline on this campaign?
Is a really good point that you're making. At the moment, there is no deadline to it, but it's something that I will definitely add to it, because it shouldn't be too long in the future, because of course we want to get it together as soon as possible so that we can continue with the work and use the resources really to make something out of it. So I will share this in the very soon future. If I receive your contact details or if you follow our social media channels, you will be definitely updated with that. But I really appreciate your question. Thank you.
Great. And what I would say is, yes, please do follow the Instagram account. And you can also follow in The Chocolate Life, Denise, if you share it with me. I will make sure to update the page. That's one of the things one of the reasons why I do this is if there are additional resources that are available or come to be available, what I can do is I can update this page and let people know, for people who are following, what it is that goes on. Oops, let me go. I'm scrolling over on my screen, and I don't have that set up. But on The Chocolate Life, again, let me know what's going on, and I will be able to update this page and let people know that stuff is changes are in the winds. Just a couple of quick comments. All of them are for Chocolate Treat, who says he doesn't know much. He or she, I'm sorry, don't know much about this. He or she did attend once the Chocolate and Art Show, Dallas, and this was in January. So again, this may not be to the timeline of finishing the film, but this represents another opportunity, something to keep about. Also, for sure, follow up on the LA Directors Guild and their Women's Steering Committee, something to think about. And also just a thank you for sharing everything. And with that,
Thank you.
Denise, I do have to agree. Thank you very much for sharing your story today, sharing your passion today, and to doing so, with a great deal of humor. Because one of the things that I like to remind people as I end the broadcast each time is that if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.